Intermediate Jewish Summit. Would you all please stand as the Prime Minister of Israel enters the hall. Good evening, Prime Minister. אדוני ראש הממשלה, תודה שאתה מכבד אותנו בנוכחותך. In this room tonight, we have the pleasure of hosting many of the top Jewish reporters, editors, and publishers from around the world. Over 100, in fact, who have made their way from near and afar just to take part in this exceptional gathering. So thank you all for coming, and I really hope you will have a very, very satisfying few days that you're going to be here in this summit. And now I'd like to ask the chairman of the board of directors of the Jewish National Fund, Mr. Effi Stenzler, to greet you all.
Thank you very much. Honorable the Prime Minister of Israel, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahou, Mr. Zev Elkin, the Foreign Affairs Chairman and Defense Committee, Mitzalchem, ladies and gentlemen. They say that a single Jew is a whole world. Two Jews, and it's already a din Torah, an argument. Welcome to the most challenging conference in the world, the first Jewish Media Summit. Writers and editors covering events in Israel and the Jewish world is truly a difficult challenge, especially for the Jewish media. I don't need to tell you about elements in the world whose whole purpose is to deride and mock Judaism. We have lived with this for hundreds and thousands of years to combat it. We have developed the world's best weapon, the Jewish humor. I don't need to tell you about elements whose whole purpose is to delegitimize Israel. We are exposed to violent attacks on a daily basis. To combat this, we have developed evidence, technology, and science, environment, culture, and the free world values. I don't need to tell you how it's possible to distort reality through the use of hostile media that present facts in a biased manner, taken completely out of context. Just look at the apathy with which the international media relate to the abduction of 3 boys from Gush Etzion. We have here with us the Prime Minister, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahou. Is turning every stone to bring this painful episode to its conclusion and to ensure that such a terrible scenario will never repeat itself. Thank you, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu. A fair press will help us in this battle. We need you. It's for this purpose that we have gathered here in Jerusalem, Israel's capital. My friends, Keren Kayemet Israel JNF is the front line of the battle over Israel's legitimacy. We are subject to criticism and violence at every one of our conferences in Europe and throughout the world. At the latest conference we held this year in Paris, for example, the French police had to create 3 lines of security, policemen, etc., etc. We didn't ask for this. It happens because of the circumstances. We are defined as the face of Zionism and the realization of the rebirth of the Jewish people in the homeland in Israel. However, is disturbed by the existence of Israelis attacks Keren Kayemet Israel JNF. They know about us, they know about the land purchase, and about the communities that arose on those tracts of the land. They know about what we are doing in the Negev and Galil and making Israel nicer and flourishing. And to the end, what I will tell you here, you will see in a couple of days in your own eyes, in a tour of Israel for 2 days that we are trying to show you. I would like to add and to say, Toda Rabba, thank you for coming to Israel. Thank you very much for what you are doing for the Jewish people, for the Jewish state, for all of us. Thank you very, very much. Be'atzlacha, Erev Tov, Erev
Thank you very much, Effie. And now I am very honored and pleased to welcome to the stage the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend and colleague, the chairman of the Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee of the Knesset, Zev Elkin, Effie Stetzler, the chairman of JNF, whom we've just heard, Nitzan Achem, who is organizing this event, and all of you, distinguished guests. So I have a question. How many of you speak English? Is there translation here? How many of you speak Hebrew? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to say a few words in Hebrew, and then I'll say a few words in English, and as I speak Hebrew, this will be an encouragement for you to attend Ulpan, so, you know, the next time we meet, you could understand everything that I say. Toda Rabba. אני שוחחתי עכשיו עם פמי, אביו של מוחמד, שנפגע מההתקפה הרצחנית לגבולנו בגולן. האויבים של מדינת ישראל לא בוחלים באמצעים, גם לא בוחלים לתקוף אזרחים, וגם בלהרוג ילדים, כפי שקרה הבוקר. והם לא מבחינים בין אזרחי היהודים והלא יהודים של מדינת ישראל. ואנחנו כעם, הלב שלנו נקרא על חטיפתו של כל נער ורציחתו של כל נער. ואני בטוח שאני מייצג את כולכם, שאני שולח את תנחומינו למשפחה הדואבת הזאת. We were attacked today on the Golan, and a 15-year-old child, youngster, teenager, was murdered. 9 days ago, 3 teenagers were abducted by Hamas. We're doing everything in our power to get them back safely to their homes. We don't like challenges. Israel is the most challenged nation on earth. And I think you'll discover this, but you'll discover something else on your visit to Israel. What you'll discover is the unique capacities of the Jewish people in the Jewish state to overcome adversity and to build a remarkable nation. I think Israel is a remarkable achievement. You'll discover that. You may already know that. And I think you have an extraordinary opportunity as representatives of the Jewish media to tell our story to the world, but first of all to our world, to our people. In 66 years, starting from a beachhead of a few 100,000, we've multiplied our population tenfold. Our economy has grown 100 times. The Israeli economy that you see today is like 100 Israeli economies that we had in our independence. Our GDP per capita has grown 30-some times. Israel is the center of world technology and innovation. Our feet are grounded in our past in this land, but we seize the future? See, I just told you that our population grew tenfold. I didn't tell you that our rainfall decreased almost by half. So you can imagine that? We have half the rainwater. We don't have big rivers. Don't have that many snow-capped mountains. We have one that doesn't produce enough water. Our rainfall goes down by half. Our population expands by 10. Our economy by 100. Our standard of living by 30. We have no water problem. How's that possible? It's possible because we have I don't know that word, sechel. Yeah. Tremendous innovation, tremendous technology. Israel is the #1 recycler of wastewater in the world. We recycle over 80% of our wastewater. The next one, Spain. Are people here from Spain? It's an important achievement, but 25%. You know, if I asked you which cow produces the most milk, you'd say a French cow, maybe a Dutch cow. This is all from the Mondial, you know. Well, no, on that one, Israel beats everyone. The Israeli cow produces more milk. You should see this cow. It's a computerized cow. Every move is recorded. There's a pill, camera pill. You may have seen it. It goes, swallow it, goes through your digestive system, and you can find out what's wrong. The next generation of pill already squirts the medicine where you have a problem. Then it comes out. Well, you can imagine. Now, that's for your digestive tract. What about the spaces inside your body that are not in the alimentary canal? The digestive tract. Well, now there's a tiny robot that they've developed. And it goes inside the cavity. And it gets to a blood vessel. See, the blood vessel may have split. Now, that's not too difficult. You can now take glue, right, and glue it inside the robot. Except there's a problem. You can glue an elephant to the ceiling. There are glues strong enough to do that. But you can't glue two wet surfaces together. Well, we've solved that one too. This is Israel. Anything you use, your cell phones have a piece of Israel. The medicines that save lives, there's a piece of Israel in them. Salad you eat, there's a piece of Israel, although I'm the only one who doesn't like these round tomatoes, you know. They're Israeli tomatoes. This is Israel. This story has to be told. Israel seizes the future. Israel right now has about 7% of the world's cyber market. Cybersecurity, you know. You don't want people getting into your bank accounts, into your cell phones, for that matter, into your traffic system, or into the power plants of your respective cities. Israel has about 100 times more its share of this market than its size. That's Israel. And Beersheba is becoming the cyber capital of the Eastern Hemisphere. That's Israel. Startups, innovation, technology. Why? Because the Jewish people always ask questions. You said they always argue? Oh, I could argue with that. Of course we always argue. We always argue, we always inquire. That's our tradition. We argue with God, for God's sake. We seek to better the world. And not all of the world that receives our contributions, they don't always return in kind. And yet, we have been able to develop a remarkable state. And with all our achievements, looking into the horizon, we have to keep our feet on the ground, firmly planted on the ground. I don't mean just the physical ground, but I mean the ground of reality. Because if there's one thing we learned in the history of our people, it is that we have to identify danger in time and take action against it in time. When the Jewish people failed to do that, we paid a horrendous price, the most horrendous price that any people have paid in history, and we have learned that lesson. And as I look today around the world, and in our part of the world, I see three great challenges that we have to deal with. When I say we, it is not merely we here in Israel, but you who are uniquely situated to help in each one of these challenges, you in the Jewish media. The first challenge is the rising tide of anti-Semitism, especially in Europe, Western Europe and Eastern Europe. It's an amalgamation of three forces: hard left, hard right, and the Islamist anti-Semitism that has perforated many parts of Europe. We've seen the bloody consequences of this hatred in Toulouse and in Brussels and elsewhere. And we have to fight it. We cannot accept it. I think that we have to speak out against it forcefully. The only way you defeat a lie is with truth, with facts, with courage. And I think that the truth has to be told about the Jewish people and the Jewish state, first by the Jews. Nobody will defend us if we do not defend ourselves. That's the first thing that I ask you to do, but it's also the first thing I expect you to do. You should demand it of yourself. Don't bow your head. Stand up proud. As Jews, speak the truth, assail the anti-Semites. By the way, I just heard that in the United States, where there is a huge support for the state of Israel, all-time high, there's still an association. Small association, but nevertheless an association of the Presbyterian Church that decided to apply some divestment against Israel. I said, you know what I would do with them? I would ask them to come to the Middle East and look around. This is what they choose to do today, when the Middle East is fragmented in this horrible war, this savage war. Savagery between militant Shiites and militant Sunnis. Hundreds of thousands are being slaughtered, millions are displaced, Christians are fleeing for their lives, churches are burned. The only place where you have freedom, tolerance, protection of minorities, protection of gays, protection of Christians, and all other faiths is Israel. So I suggested them to take a plane, come here, and then, if we can manage it, let's arrange a bus tour for them in the region. Let them go to Libya, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq. And my only suggestion for them is that, well, I have two suggestions for them. One, that it be an armor-plated bus. And two, that they shouldn't announce that they're Christians. Israel is the only place, it's the only beacon of light, of true freedom, true tolerance, in this very large expanse between Gibraltar and the Kuiper Pass. And you should say it. You should tell it to the anti-Semites. You should speak about the greatness and tolerance of our people. Here, in the various communities, you should fight anti-Semitism. That's the first challenge we have. we have made a decision today in our cabinet to assist and to bring to Israel the communities in Western Europe and Eastern Europe. Anybody who wants to make Aliyah, and we want them to make Aliyah, to come to Israel. But the first order of the day is to fight the anti-Semites. The second is to cement fraying identities in the West, especially in North America. And I'm talking about young Jews who have not received a Jewish education, have not been to Israel. And that, I think, is important. We have invested in a government program to cement this identity. You can help in that in a big way. There are great programs like Birthright and Masa, in which we want to bring young kids here. There is no substitute for bringing youngsters like yourself here to Israel, to see with your own eyes and to communicate it to others, because we believe that when young people are exposed to our country, and our country, I mean our collective patrimony, and to our heritage, we can infuse them with pride. We can make them want to be Jews. And we'll persuade some of them to come here. And that, I think, is the second great challenge that we have today, which I think you can assist in and you can take a major part in. And the thing is, the third challenge is the dangers that come from our region. And I've spoken about what is happening here. What is happening here now is that the centuries-old hatred between Sunnis and Shiites have now been uncorked with the collapse of the secular regimes, mostly dictatorships, that have contained us. They've collapsed, and the Shiite militancies are fighting the Sunni militancies with greater and greater venom and barbarism, and everyone that's caught in between. This is a fault line between civilization and savagery. You can see it on the Golan Heights. You know, we set up a field hospital there. I suggest you go there. And if you don't have it on your plans, Nitzan, organize it. Just go to the field hospital. We take in Syrian civilians, children. Some of them lost limbs. We take care of them. They've escaped the hell that is Syria today, and we take care of them. Then we allow them to come back, but we can't take their photographs of these children, or publish them rather, because they'll be executed for being treated, for having their lives saved in Israel. They'd be executed. This is a fault line between civilization and barbarism. We cannot correct in the near future this tragedy, either in Syria or in Iraq. Both camps, the radical Shiites led by Iran, and the radical Sunnis led by Al-Qaeda and ISIS and other organizations, they're enemies of our civilizations. They're enemies of humanity. They're enemies of Israel, they're enemies of the United States, they're enemies of every country that is represented here by you. When your enemies are fighting one another, don't strengthen either one of them. Weaken both. There are things that can be done to blunt the ISIS takeover of Iraq, just as there are things that must be done to blunt Iran's takeover of Iraq, so that what happened in Lebanon and Syria is not replicated. That's important. But by far, the most important thing today, not only today, but in a historical perspective, the most important thing is to make sure that a militant regime, a militant Islamic regime or a militant Islamic movement does not get its hands on the weapons of mass destruction. That is the number one imperative of our times. Now, while the Syrian conflict was not solved, what was achieved there, in this realm, was important. The agreement to get rid of the chemical weapons in Syria was important. And it's almost completed. Over 90%, much more even, has been removed. Notice what I said, removed. The chemical stockpiles, the weapons, the means to manufacture chemical weapons, they've been removed, taken out of Syria. And that task should be completed. That is not the deal that is now, I fear, being negotiated with Iran. Rather than dismantle and remove, what is being discussed with Iran is to keep and inspect. Very different. In other words, most of the sanctions would be lifted from Iran, and most of the capability would be left in Iran. Bad. Exceedingly bad. And exceedingly dangerous for the future of the world. Not only the region, not only Israel, the world. Iran is developing ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. They don't need it for Israel. They don't need it for attacking us. They are intended to attack anyone within thousands and thousands of kilometers of their range, and ICBMs have only one purpose: to have nuclear bomb warheads. It is the height of folly to allow one of the Islamist camps to have nuclear weapons. This will change history. It will be a pivot of history in a catastrophic way. That should not happen. If there's one message that needs to be put out today, it is don't let Iran, on the sidelines of this conflict in Iraq, have nuclear weapons capability, because sooner or later, and it's sooner rather than later, they'll have atomic bombs. That should be prevented. I give you these three challenges: the battle against anti-Semitism, the battle against loss of identity, and the battle to ensure that radical Muslims do not have weapons of mass destruction as the three great challenges of our day, of Israel, but not only of Israel. And if we learn anything from history, is that the anti-Semitic fires that begin with the Jews soon spread to others and consume entire societies. These are great challenges. The Jewish people have shown a remarkable ability to address challenges, especially since the rebirth of Jewish sovereignty here in the state of Israel. And I believe that we can see our challenges. As we take pride in our achievements, we can see the challenges. We don't lower our heads, avert our eyes, we look at them and we address them. And when I say we, I include you in this collective. Because you're part of our people. You're here because you feel that connection. And I want you to transmit those feelings and those thoughts as you tour this country, as you see this remarkable land and this remarkable state where nobody argues with each other. But as we address each other, there's a tremendous bond and tremendous pride that we've been able to overcome the iron laws of history, rise from the ashes. I read recently a book, slender book. It's called The Lessons of History. It was written by a remarkable historian, American historian, Will Durant, who wrote, I think, 11 volumes that he called The Story of Civilization, documenting various civilizations. And then towards the end of his life, he wrote small book with his wife, who happened to be Jewish, Ariel. The lessons of history. What did he learn? So, you want the good news or the bad news? I'll give you the bad news first. The bad news, he said, basically, if you read it, you glean one lesson, and that is that numbers count. You know, big nations have an advantage. They produce bigger GDPs, which produces more military ability, which produces more prowess, which overcomes other nations and so on. They too go through cycles of decline. Numbers count. But then he says at a certain point that you can beat numbers in geography if you have a cultural force. And he said the young state of Israel is perhaps the best example of the ability to overcome the odds. Now this was some 40 years ago. I think we've overcome the odds since. We'll overcome the odds now and in the future. We overcome it with what he calls our cultural force. And I call it our heritage, our hope, our faith, our bond. That is what I want you to express to Jews everywhere, young, old, middle-aged. I know you'll do it. Welcome to Jerusalem. Welcome to Israel. This is your land. Thank you.